The rustling wasn't from the wind. It was too deliberate, too rhythmic. I'd lived in Tucson my whole life, and the sounds of the desert at night were as familiar to me as my own heartbeat. Coyotes yipping, the occasional hoot of an owl, the dry scuttling of some unseen creature in the underbrush. But this was different. This sound had an intelligence to it, a predatory patience that made the hair on my arms stand up. It all started a few weeks ago. My apartment overlooks a small community park, really just a patch of dusty land with a few mesquite trees, a swing set, and a couple of benches. It's not much, but it was my little slice of desert serenity. Lately though, serenity was the last word I'd use to describe it. It began with my dog, Buster. He's a fierce little terrier mix, but suddenly, he refused to go near the park after sundown. He'd plant his paws firmly on the pavement, whining and pulling back on his leash, his eyes fixed on the deepening shadows under the trees. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe he smelled a javelina or a coyote, but then other strange things started happening. I'd hear scratching at my second-story window late at night. Impossible, I told myself. There's nothing out there but a sheer drop. Then came the whispers, faint, like the wind carrying a distant conversation. But the words were just on the edge of comprehension, mimicking voices I knew. One night I could have sworn I heard my mother calling my name, clear as day. The problem is, my mother lives 3 states away. When I called her, panicked, she was fast asleep. The real turning point happened last Tuesday. I was working late, and around 2 in the morning, I got up to stretch and looked out my window at the park. Under the dim orange glow of a single streetlight, I saw a figure. It was hunched over near the swing set, unnaturally tall and thin. Its limbs were too long, its joints bending at angles that just felt wrong. It was digging at the base of one of the swings, its movements jerky and frantic. I couldn't make out a face, just a dark, shifting silhouette. My blood ran cold. I fumbled for my phone to take a picture, but by the time I got the camera app open, it was gone, vanished into thin air. The next morning, I couldn't resist. I had to go see what it was doing. I took Buster with me, though he was practically trembling. We walked over to the swing set, and my heart hammered against my ribs. There, in the hard-packed dirt, were deep gouges, not from a shovel, but from something sharp, something more like claws. And nestled in the disturbed earth was a small, crudely made doll of twigs and twine, with a single strand of what looked disturbingly like my own reddish-brown hair woven into it. That's when the stories my Navajo grandmother used to tell me came flooding back. Stories she'd only whisper after dark, about beings that could wear the skins of animals, that could mimic human voices to lure you out into the night. They were masters of trickery, creatures of pure malice. Skinwalkers. I'd always dismissed them as old-world folklore, scary tales to keep kids in line. But standing there, staring at that effigy with my hair tied into it, I knew. Igas. Just knew. The whispers have gotten louder since then. They're not just outside my window anymore. Sometimes, I hear them from the other room. A faint imitation of my own voice, humming a tune I haven't thought of in years. My reflection in the mirror sometimes seems to lag a split second behind my movements. I've covered all the mirrors in my apartment now. I keep the blinds drawn tight, even during the day. The park across the street is no longer a place of peace. It's a stage, and I feel like I'm the main character in a play I never auditioned for. Last night was the worst. I was jolted awake by a sound from my living room. A soft, wet, tearing sound, followed by a low, guttural cough. It was the kind of cough a person makes when they're trying to dislodge something from their throat. I lay in bed, frozen, every muscle screaming at me to stay quiet. The coughing stopped, and then I heard it. Footsteps. But they weren't normal footsteps. It was a heavy, uneven gait, like something was struggling to walk upright. A dragging sound, then a soft thud against my bedroom door. It was testing the lock. I held my breath, listening. Silence. A long, drawn-out silence that was somehow more terrifying than the noise. Then, a voice, right outside my door. It was my voice, but not. It was distorted, raspy, like a poor recording. It whispered, "Let me in." I forgot my key, my own voice, twisted into a horrifying parody. I didn't answer. I just pulled the blankets over my head like a child, my heart threatening to explode. I stayed like that until the sun came up, until the first rays of light streamed through a crack in the blinds. When I finally got the courage to open my door, the apartment was empty. Everything was in its place, but on the floor, right in front of my bedroom door, was a single, large, muddy paw print. It wasn't from a coyote or a dog. It was too big, the shape all wrong, and scattered around it were several long, coarse black hairs. I don't know what to do. The police would think I'm crazy. Who do you call when a nightmare from ancient folklore decides to move in across the street? It's watching me. I know it is. From Dot Park. It wears the desert's darkness like a cloak, and it can wear a familiar voice like a mask. It wants to trade places. I've started noticing things about myself. A new scratch. I don't remember getting. A fleeting taste of something metallic in my mouth. I find myself staring out at the park, even when I don't want to. It's like it's calling to me, pulling at something deep inside. This morning, I looked in the bathroom mirror before I had a chance to stop myself. For a horrifying second, my reflection grinned back at me. Its teeth just a little too long, its eyes a little too dark. I don't know how much longer I can keep it out. I don't know how much longer I'll be me. The sun is setting again over Tucson, and the shadows in the park are growing long, and I can hear it, starting again. The faint rustling in the trees. It knows I'm listening. It's waiting. Thanks for tuning in to my story. If you've ever experienced something you can't explain, something ancient and unsettling in the night, share it in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling tales. Stay safe out there. And whatever you do, don't listen to the whispers in the dark. In the remote desert town of Havenwood, there's one rule everyone follows without question. Always keep your porch light on after dark. It's not about deterring burglars or lighting up the path. It's about keeping something else at a distance. Turning it off is an invitation, a signal for something to come closer. I learned this the hard way. I moved to Havenwood for the solitude, for the vast, empty landscapes under an endless sky. I bought a small, isolated house on the edge of town, where the desert stretched out like a silent, sandy ocean. The real estate agent, a weathered old man named Silas, handed me the keys with a grave look. He told me about the porch light. "Keep it on, son," he said, his voice low. "From dusk till dawn, no exceptions. The bulb burns out, you replace it immediately, even if it's the middle of the night." I thought it was just a quirky local tradition, a way to build community in the middle of nowhere. I nodded, smiled, and forgot his warning almost as soon as he left. For the first few weeks, I followed the rule. Every evening, as the sun bled across the horizon, I'd flick on the switch. The warm, yellow glow of my porch light joined the distant constellation of lights from the other houses, a small galaxy of safety against the immense darkness. The desert nights were profoundly quiet, a silence so deep it felt heavy. Sometimes, I'd sit on my porch, listening to the hum of the electricity in the bulb, feeling a strange sense of comfort in its steady light. But then, the skepticism started to creep in. It was a perfectly good bulb, and leaving it on all night seemed like a waste of electricity. What could possibly be out there? Coyotes? Mountain lions? I'd seen them before. They were afraid of humans. The town's strange little superstition felt silly, born from generations of isolation and campfire stories. One Tuesday night, after a long day of unpacking, I decided to test the theory. It was a moonless night, the kind of darkness that swallows everything. I stood by my front door, my hand on the light switch. A small, nagging voice in the back of my head whispered Silas's warning, but I brushed it aside. With a click, the porch was plunged into darkness. The world outside my window became a void. I went to the living room, feeling a smug sense of rebellion. For about an hour, nothing happened. The silence was the same as always. I started to chuckle to myself, a whole town terrified of the dark. Then I heard it. a faint scratching sound. It was coming from the direction of my porch. My heart gave a little jolt, probably just a branch scraping against the house. For a minute, told myself, though, there were no trees near my porch. The scratching stopped, replaced by a soft, rhythmic tapping on the wooden steps. Tap, 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 tap. It sounded like someone was patiently walking up to my door. I froze, my ears straining in the silence. The tapping stopped right outside my door. A thick, heavy silence descended again, but this time it felt different. It felt occupied. It felt like something was standing on my porch, just on the other side of the door, waiting. My breath caught in my throat. My earlier confidence evaporated, replaced by a cold, creeping dread. I remembered Silas's words, his serious expression. This was a mistake. A terrible, terrible mistake. I stayed completely still, barely breathing, hoping whatever it was would just go away. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Then, a new sound began, a sound that made the blood freeze in my veins. It was a soft, wet, scraping sound against the door itself. It was slow, deliberate, as if something was dragging its nails down the wood, testing it. Panic seized me. I scrambled for the light switch by the door, my fingers fumbling in the dark. I just needed to turn it back on. Maybe that would make it leave. As my hand found the switch, a voice whispered from the other side of the door. It was my voice. Exactly my voice. "Let me in," it whispered. "It's cold out here." A wave of pure terror washed over me. It wasn't just my voice. It was the exact tone I used when I was trying to be soothing, the one I used to use on the phone with my mom. How could it know that? My hand trembled over the switch. The thing outside mimicked a shiver, a theatrical, drawn-out sound that was utterly inhuman. "Please," it whispered again in my voice. I forgot my key. I knew then that opening the door was not an option, but I had to do something. My eyes darted around the room, landing on the heavy iron poker by the unused fireplace. Slowly, silently, I backed away from the door and grabbed it. Its weight a small comfort in my hand. The scratching started again, louder this time, more frantic. It sounded like claws now, tearing at the wood, splintering it. The doorknob began to jiggle. First, a little, then violently, rattling in its socket. The entire door shook in its frame. Whatever was out there was immensely strong. It started speaking again, but the voice was changing. It cycled through different voices, like a radio scanning for a station. A woman's soft sob, a man's gruff shout. Then, it settled on a voice that made my stomach clench. Silas, the real estate agent. "You have to let it see the light." "Son," the voice pleaded. "It just wants to see the light." Was this a trick? A desperate plea for help? No. It was a mockery. It was twisting the one piece of advice I was given, using it against me. The assault on the door intensified. A loud crack echoed through the house as the wood of the doorframe began to split. It was going to get in. In a desperate surge of adrenaline, I charged the door. Not to open it, but to get to the light switch right beside it. As my fingers hit the switch, I didn't dare look through the peephole. I flicked it on, and the porch was instantly flooded with light. Immediately, the noise stopped. The rattling, the scratching. The voices, all of it ceased in an instant. The silence that followed was more profound than any I had ever experienced. It was the silence of absolute absence. I stood there for a long time, my back pressed against the wall, the poker held tight in my sweating hands. I didn't move until the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the desert in soft pastel colors. When the sun was fully up, I cautiously approached the door. My hand shook as I turned the deadbolt. I opened it a crack, then wider. The porch was empty. But the door was covered in deep, gouge-like scratches, splintered and torn as if a large animal had tried to claw its way through. And on the doormat, there was a single, long, black strand of what looked like hair, and a patch of dark, damp sand that hadn't been there before. I never turned my porch light off again. I bought a box of the brightest, most long-lasting bulbs I could find. I even installed a battery-powered backup. The other residents of Havenwood would sometimes nod at me, a knowing look in their eyes. We never spoke about it, but we all understood. We lived by the rule, not out of superstition, but out of a shared, unspoken terror. Sometimes, late at night, when the wind howls just right, I think I hear a whisper on the edge of my hearing, carried from the deep desert. It sounds like my own voice, calling my name, asking me to turn off the light, asking me to let it come closer. But I never will, because I know what waits in the darkness, just beyond the edge of the light, and it knows me. The forest has its own rules, its own pulse. Most of the time, it's a rhythm you can get used to. The whisper of wind through pines, the crackle of a twig underfoot. But sometimes, the forest decides to play a game, and you're the unwilling participant. My friend, Leo, and I learned this the hard way. We were deep in the backcountry of Arizona, miles from any marked trail, chasing a rumor of a hidden waterfall. The landscape was breathtaking, a maze of red rock canyons and ancient, gnarled junipers. We'd been hiking for hours, and the afternoon sun was starting to dip, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. We were navigating a particularly dense patch of woods, the kind where the canopy is so thick it feels like twilight even at midday. I was a few yards ahead of Leo, pushing through a curtain of low-hanging branches. When I broke through to a small clearing, I turned back. "Leo, you gotta see this view," I shouted, expecting him to be right behind me. There was no reply, just the rustle of leaves. "Leo," I called again, a little louder this time. Silence. A flicker of annoyance, mixed with concern, started to bubble up. "We are the rule. Always stay within sight of each other." "Leo." "This isn't funny," I yelled, my voice echoing slightly against the rock face of the canyon wall to my left. The sound bounced back, a faint, distorted version of my own words. "Isn't funny?" it seemed to say. I waited. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. I was starting to get genuinely worried. Maybe he'd tripped, twisted an ankle. I cupped my hands around my mouth and shouted his name with everything I had. "Leo, where are you?" The sound blasted across the clearing, hit the canyon wall, and then nothing. No dog sound, just a profound, unsettling quiet. The birds had stopped chirping. The wind died down. It felt like the entire forest was holding its breath. I stood there, straining my ears, my heart starting to hammer against my ribs. 1 minute passed, then another. The unease was turning into a cold dread that seeped into my bones. It was just too quiet. Just as I was about to head back, the way I came, a voice shattered the silence. "Leo, where are you?" It was my own voice, thrown back at me from the direction of the canyon wall. But it wasn't an echo. An echo is immediate, a faded copy. This was Delay. It was a perfect, crystal clear imitation of my shout, with the same tone, the same inflection, the same desperate edge. It was as if someone had recorded my voice and played it back 2 minutes later. My blood ran cold. I froze, every muscle in my body tensing up. That wasn't natural. That was impossible. "Who's there?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The woods remained silent. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe it was a strange acoustical phenomenon, a trick of the canyon's geography. But the longer I stood there, the less I believed it. A primal instinct, something ancient and buried deep within, was screaming at me that I was in danger. I slowly backed away from the clearing, my eyes darting into the deepening shadows. I had to find Leo. I had to get us out of here. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "Okay, Leo, for real, man." "We need to go," I called out, trying to sound calm. But my voice wavered. I started moving back along our path, calling his name every few seconds. No response. The sun was almost gone now, and the forest was transforming into a labyrinth of black shapes and menacing silhouettes. The fear was a physical thing, a weight pressing down on me. Then I heard it again, from somewhere off to my right, deeper in the trees. "Okay, Leo, For real, man, we need to go. My own voice, mimicked flawlessly. It was closer this time. My heart leaped into my throat. This was no echo. This was a hunt. Something was out there, playing with me, using my own voice as bait. I broke into a run, stumbling blindly through the undergrowth, branches whipping at my face. I didn't care. I just had to get away from that voice. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs felt like lead. I finally burst out of the trees and onto a rocky ledge overlooking a steep drop. I was trapped. I spun out on my back to the cliff's edge, scanning the tree line. The woods were dark and silent, a wall of impenetrable black, but I could feel it. I could feel eyes on me. I knew it was there, watching me, waiting. And then the voice came again, this time from directly in front of me, just inside the tree line. It wasn't my voice anymore. It was Leo's. "Hey man, what's the rush?" It said, his familiar, easygoing tone sending a wave of absolute terror through me. I could almost see him, leaning against a tree, a casual grin on his face. But I knew it wasn't him. Leo wouldn't do this. He wouldn't be this cruel. This was something else, something that had taken his voice. "Leo," I choked out, a sliver of hope warring with the overwhelming dread. "Is that you?" The only answer was a low chuckle that didn't sound human at all. It was dry and guttural, like the scraping of stones. Then, two pinpricks of pale, glowing light appeared in the darkness, about the height a man's eyes would be. They weren't reflecting my flashlight beam. They were generating their own faint, sickly luminescence. They blinked, slowly. A shape began to resolve itself from the shadows. It was tall and gaunt, unnaturally thin, its limbs long and jointed at odd angles. It moved with a jerky, disjointed gait, stepping out from behind a tree. Its skin looked like old, stretched leather, pulled taut over a frame of sharp bones. It wasn't wearing clothes, but its hide was a patchwork of grays and browns that let it blend perfectly with the trees. But the head was the worst part. It was elongated, almost canine. But the face was a nightmarish parody of a human's, and it was smiling a wide, toothless grin. It took another step towards me, and it spoke again, this time in a perfect imitation of my own terrified whisper. "Who's there?" It mocked. It tilted its impossible head, the glowing eyes fixed on me. It knew my fear. It was feeding on it. I was paralyzed, pinned to the spot by a terror so profound it felt like my soul was trying to leave my body. This was the thing from the old stories, the legends the locals whispered about with fearful reverence. Skinwalker. I never found Leo. I don't know what happened to me on that ledge. The next thing I remember is waking up at the base of the canyon, battered and bruised, with the morning sun on my face. A search party found me hours later, dehydrated and incoherent. They searched for Leo for weeks. They found his backpack, neatly placed by the side of a creek, miles from where we were. But they never found him. I don't go hiking anymore. I can't stand the quiet of the woods. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is silent, I think I can hear it, a faint echo, whispering from the darkest corner of the room. It sounds just like my own voice, and it always says the same thing. "Leo, where are you?" The desert has a way of playing tricks on your eyes, especially after dark. The heat shimmering off the asphalt, the way shadows dance and distort in your headlights. You get used to it, or so I thought. I was driving back to Phoenix from a job in Flagstaff, a long, lonely stretch of highway that cuts through the heart of Navajo Nation. It was well past midnight, and the only other signs of life were the occasional pair of glowing eyes on the roadside coyotes. Probably. That's when I saw him, a man, standing by the shoulder, thumb stuck out. This was unusual. People don't hitchhike out here, not at this hour. It's just not safe. But something about him. He looked desperate, dressed in worn-out jeans and a thin jacket, totally unprepared for the chilly desert night. Against my better judgment, primera pull dober. The gravel crunched under my tires as I rolled down the passenger window. "Need a lift?" I asked. It just nodded a slight, jerky motion and shuffled towards the car. He opened the door and slid in without a word. The dome light flickered on, and I got my first good look at him. He was older, his face a road map of deep wrinkles, his hair long and streaked with gray. But it was his eyes that held me. They were dark, almost black, and seemed to drink in the light. "Where you headed?" I asked, pulling back onto the empty highway. He pointed a long, bony finger straight ahead. "Just down the road," he rasped. His voice was like stones grinding together, dry and low. I tried to make small talk, asking if his car broke down, but he just grunted non-committal answers. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. I chalked it up to him being tired, or maybe just not a talker. I kept my eyes on the road, but I was acutely aware of him sitting beside me. The air in the car grew heavy, thick with a smell I couldn't place. It was earthy like damp soil and something else, something musky and wild. I glanced over at him. He was staring straight ahead, completely still. Two. Not even the slight sway of the car seemed to affect him. That's when I saw it. His left eye blinked. Just the left one. A slow, deliberate closure. Then it opened again. A few seconds passed. Then, his right eye did the same thing. Left, then right. It was unnatural, like he was operating each eye independently. My stomach tightened. It was like watching a doll or an animatronic, something trying to mimic a human action but not quite getting it right. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he had a medical condition, a nerve issue, but the rhythm was too perfect, too mechanical. Left blink, pause, right, blink, pause, over and over. He was practicing. He was learning how to be human, right there in my passenger seat. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I pressed my foot down on the accelerator, the engine whining in protests as the speedometer needle climbed. 80, 90. The highway markers became a blur. I needed to get him out of my car. I needed to get away from whatever this was. "This is as far as I go," I said, my voice shaking slightly. I tried to sound firm, but it came out as a squeak. I started to pull over to the shoulder. He turned his head to look at me, the motion slow and unnervingly smooth. That's when the smell intensified, the wild animal scent, filling my nostrils, making me gag. "Not yet," he rasped, that same gravelly voice, now laced with something predatory. And then he smiled. It wasn't a human smile. His lips stretched too wide, pulling back from teeth that were too long, too sharp. They weren't human teeth. And his eyes, those dark, endless eyes, locked onto mine. In their depths, I saw not a man, but a cunning, ancient intelligence. Raw hunger, panic, pure and absolute, took over. I didn't slow down. I yanked the steering wheel hard to the right, then swerved back left. The car fishtailed wildly across the road. The thing next to me was thrown against the door, but it made no sound of surprise or pain. It just turned its head back towards me, its horrible smile never wavering. I screamed and slammed on the brakes. The tires shrieked as the car spun out, coming to a screeching halt in the middle of the empty highway, facing the way we came. For a heart-stopping second, everything was still. Then, the passenger door creaked open. It didn't get out like a person. It unfolded itself from the seat, its limbs moving at impossible angles. It was too tall, its frame elongating as it stood up outside the car. In the red glow of my taillights, I saw its form shifting, twisting. The worn-out jeans and thin jacket seemed to melt into a hide of coarse, dark fur. The face I saw was no longer human. It was long, with a canine snout, and those same black eyes, now glowing with a faint, internal light. It took a step towards my door, its gait a loping, four-legged shamble that was terrifyingly fast. I didn't wait. I threw the car into drive and floored it. The tires smoked as they fought for purchase on the asphalt. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. Primera. Kud. Ian. Ihustrov. my knuckles white on the steering wheel, my breath coming in ragged sobs. I drove until the sun started to bleed over the horizon, painting the desert in shades of orange and pink. I didn't stop until I was in the sprawling suburbs of Phoenix, surrounded by houses and streetlights and the comforting noise of morning traffic. I never told anyone what happened. Who would believe me? They'd say it was the desert heat, the late hour, my mind playing tricks on me. But I know what I saw. I know that for a few terrifying hours, I gave a ride to something that was only pretending to be a man. And sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone, I'll catch myself watching people. Watching the way they blink. And I pray to God that they always do it together. Thanks for listening. If you have a story of your own, share it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more unexplained encounters. Stay safe out there. The call came on a Tuesday. A day so ordinary it felt insulting. For 3 years, I've been living in a gray haze since my husband, Ben, vanished without a trace. The police had closed the case. His family had held a memorial, but I couldn't. I just existed. Then, the phone rang. A grainy voice, a state trooper from a town I'd never heard of, told me they'd found him. Ben, he was alive. He was coming home. When he walked through that door, my world, which had been frozen, suddenly lurched back into motion. It was him, the same warm brown eyes, the same crooked smile that had made me fall in love with him a decade ago. Elukid tin-weathered, and his eyes held a hollowness I'd never seen before. But it was Ben. I threw myself into his arms, sobbing with a relief so profound it was painful. He held me tight, whispering my name, and for a moment, everything was right. The first few days were a blur of tears and tentative smiles. The doctor said he had amnesia, a consequence of whatever trauma he'd endured. He couldn't remember the last 3 years, not a single day. He just woke up on a dusty road with his name and our address swimming in his head. I didn't care. The important thing was that he was back. I was ready to help him rebuild, to fill in the gaps, to create new memories to replace the stolen ones. It started subtly. We were sitting on the porch one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. I said, "Remember our honeymoon in Hawaii? The sunrise on Haleakala." He smiled, a soft, distant look in his eyes. "Yeah," he said. "And remember that little cafe we found? The one with the amazing Kona coffee and the old man who played the ukulele?" I frowned. "We never found a cafe like that. We drank instant coffee from our hotel room because we were too cheap to go out," I corrected him gently, laughing it off. "Honey, you must be mixing it up. We were on a tight budget, remember?" His smile faltered. "Oh, right." My memories all jumbled, but it kept happening. He'd bring up a camping trip to a lake we'd never visited, a concert we never attended, a fight we never had. Each time, he'd describe these fabricated memories with such vivid detail: the smell of the pine trees, the sound of the guitar solo, the sting of angry words. It was unnerving. These weren't just fuzzy details. They were entire, fully formed experiences that had never happened. They were wrong memories. Even more disturbing were the things he'd forgotten. One night, I pulled out our wedding album. I pointed to a picture of my maid of honor, my sister, Sarah. "Who's this?" I asked, a playful test. He stared at the photo, his brow furrowed in concentration. I don't know," he admitted, looking at me with genuine confusion. My heart dropped. Sarah had practically lived with us for the first year of our marriage. They were like siblings. How could he forget Sarah? He forgot the name of our first dog, Buster, the golden retriever he'd cried over for a week when he passed. He forgot our song, the one we danced to in the kitchen on countless rainy nights. He forgot the inside joke about the salty soup that always made us laugh until we cried. It was like he had a perfect, detailed blueprint of a life, but it wasn't our life. It was a cheap imitation, a counterfeit copy where all the most precious, intricate details were missing, replaced by clumsy forgeries. The man who slept beside me looked like my husband, sounded like my husband, but the soul behind his eyes felt like a stranger. A growing dread began to coil in my stomach. This wasn't just amnesia. Amnesia was a void, a blank space. This was something else. This was replacement. One evening, I found him in the study, staring at a map of the Navajo Nation reservation, not far from where they'd found him. His finger was tracing a remote, desolate area. When I entered, he quickly folded the map, but not before I saw the look on his face. It wasn't the familiar, loving gaze of my Ben. It was something else. Calculating. Predatory. For a fleeting second, his eyes seemed to darken, the pupils elongating into vertical slits, like a cat's. I blinked, and it was gone. He was just Ben again, smiling his crooked smile. "Just curious about where I was," he said, his voice a little too smooth. That night, I couldn't sleep. The wrong memories, the forgotten moments, the flash of something inhuman in his eyes, all coalesced into a terrifying theory, a word I'd only ever heard in whispers and ghost stories. Skinwalker, the old legends, spoke of them. Shamans who achieved forbidden power, the ability to take the form of any animal, or worse, any person, to wear their skin, to steal their life. They said you could tell by their eyes and by what they didn't know, the intimate, personal memories that define a person, the things a mimic could never replicate perfectly. I lay there, feigning sleep, my body rigid with fear. His breathing next to me was deep and even, but it didn't sound right. It was too rhythmic, too mechanical. Hours ticked by. Just as dawn was about to break, I felt the bed shift. I cracked my eyes open just enough to see his silhouette moving in the dim light. He crept out of the room, silent as a shadow. My heart hammering against my ribs, I followed him. He went to the back door, and I watched through the crack in the kitchen doorway as he slipped outside into the pre-dawn gloom. I waited a few agonizing minutes before I dared to look out the window. What I saw will haunt me until the day I die. Standing in the middle of our lawn was not my husband. It was a tall, emaciated creature, its limbs too long, its joints bending at unnatural angles. Its skin was pale and stretched tight over a skeletal frame. As it turned its head, its face was a grotesque parody of Ben's. The features distorted and wrong, the mouth stretching into a silent, impossibly wide grin. Its eyes glowed with a faint, malevolent orange light in the darkness. It was looking right at the house. At my window, it knew I was watching. The thing's head cocked to the side, a gesture so eerily familiar, a mimicry of a habit Ben always had. Then, slowly, with a series of sickening cracks and pops, it began to change. Its bones contorted. Its skin seemed to ripple and fold in on itself, reforming. Within seconds, it was Ben again, standing there in his pajamas, stretching as if waking from a long sleep. He turned and walked back toward the house, a placid smile on his face. I scrambled back to the bedroom, my mind screaming. I dove into bed and pulled the covers over my head, my body shaking uncontrollably. The bedroom door creaked open. The mattress dipped as he climbed back in beside me. I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. "You're awake." The voice that sounded so much like my husband's whispered in my ear. "Bad dream." I couldn't answer. I could only lie there, paralyzed by a terror so absolute it stole the air from my lungs. He wrapped his arm around me, pulling me close. His touch felt like ice. "It's okay," he murmured, his breath cold against my neck. "I'm here now. We can make some new memories together, better ones. I know now that my husband never came home. The man sleeping next to me, the thing wearing his face, is just waiting. It has his form. It has a collection of counterfeit memories, but it's hungry for the real thing. It's hungry for my memories, my life. And every night, I close my eyes and pray I don't wake up, because I know that one day soon, it will decide it's done playing house. It will want to complete its collection, and I know, with chilling certainty, that the last memory it will steal will be mine. The Appalachian Trail can be a lonely place. but that's exactly what I was looking for. I'd been hiking for 3 days. The silence of the ancient woods a welcome balm to my city-frayed nerves. By late afternoon, the sky had turned a bruised purple, and a cold, persistent drizzle began to fall. Up ahead, through the dense trees, I saw it. The familiar three-sided shape of a trail shelter. A wave of relief washed over me. I wasn't going to be spending the night soaked to the bone. The shelter was empty, which was a little unusual for this time of year, but I wasn't about to complain. I dropped my heavy pack onto one of the wooden bunks, the sound echoing in the stillness. After I delayed out my sleeping bag and started a small fire in the pit just outside, I noticed the guest log. It was a simple, weathered notebook chained to a post, its pages filled with the names and stories of hikers who had passed through. I always enjoyed reading these entries, little glimpses into other people's journeys. Flipping through the rain-swollen pages, I saw the usual notes. Saw a bear near the ridge. Ran out of trail mix. Send help. Beautiful sunset. But then, I came to the most recent entry. The handwriting was jagged, frantic, as if written by a trembling hand. It was dated for today. It read, headed south. Something's following me from the woods. It mimics bird calls, but they're wrong. Not just wrong, they're mocking. A chill, unrelated to the damp air, crept down my spine. I tried to laugh it off. Probably just a hiker with an overactive imagination, spooked by the isolation. As darkness fell, the forest came alive with sound. The normal chorus of crickets and frogs was there, but underneath it, I heard something else. A strange clicking sound, like stones being tapped together, echoed from deep within the trees. It will hold, stop, then start again, seemingly closer each time. I told myself it was just a branch knocking against a tree in the wind, but the wind had died down completely. The air was unnervingly still. I retreated into the shelter, pulling my sleeping bag tighter around me, my eyes fixed on the black wall of trees beyond the firelight. That's when I heard the bird call. It was a perfect imitation of a Carolina wren, a cheerful, bubbling song, but it was the middle of the night. No wren sings in total darkness. The song repeated, but this time it ended with a low, guttural growl that was distinctly not avian. My heart hammered against my ribs. This had to be what the hiker in the logbook was talking about. I was paralyzed with fear, listening. An hour passed in dead silence. My rational mind started to fight back. It's the woods. The woods make strange noises. You're just letting a spooky story get to you. I took a few deep breaths and finally started to relax, my exhaustion overriding my fear. My eyelids grew heavy. I must have dozed off because I was jolted awake by a sound from right outside the shelter. A soft, shuffling sound, like bare feet on damp earth. I held my breath. Every muscle in my body tensed. Slowly, I reached for my headlamp, my hand shaking so badly I could barely grip it. The shuffling stopped. I could feel a presence just beyond the opening of the shelter, something standing there in the darkness, watching. Then, I heard a voice, a whisper that sounded like dry leaves skittering across pavement. It was my name. It whispered my name. David. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. My blood ran cold. How could anything out here know my name? I hadn't spoken it aloud, hadn't seen another soul for days. My mind raced back to the guest log. I hadn't signed it. I had planned to do it in the morning. The voice spoke again, closer this time, as if it was leaning into the shelter. David, it rasped, and this time it was followed by a soft, wet chuckle. It sounded horribly, unnaturally human. This was no animal. This was something else. Something intelligent. The thing from the logbook entry, gathering every ounce of courage I had, I flicked on my headlamp, swinging the beam toward the entrance. There was nothing there. Just the empty clearing, the dying embers of my fire, and the impenetrable wall of trees. But the feeling of being watched was stronger than ever. My light scanned the area, catching nothing but leaves and shadows. My breathing was ragged. I needed to see that logbook again. I needed to make sure I wasn't going crazy. Keeping the beam of my headlamp pointed at the shelter entrance, I crab-walked backward toward the post where the log was chained. My fingers fumbled with the wet cover, flipping it open. I found the frantic entry from earlier, and right below it, there was a new one. The ink was still dark and wet, glistening in my light. The handwriting was the same jagged scrawl, but it wasn't the words that made my stomach drop. It was the name. My name, David Miller. And next to my name, it listed my time of arrival, and then my time of death. 12 a.m. I glanced at my watch. It was 11:58 p.m. A scream tore from my throat. Behind me, from the direction of the shelter's dark interior, came an answering sound. It wasn't a scream. It was the perfect, chilling mimicry of my own terrified voice, followed by that same wet, guttural chuckle. It hadn't been outside. It had been inside with me the whole time. I didn't wait. I scrambled out of the shelter, leaving my pack, my sleeping bag, everything. I just ran. I sprinted into the pitch-black forest, the beam of my headlamp bouncing wildly, illuminating a terrifying, chaotic kaleidoscope of trees and roots. Behind me, I could hear it. The shuffling sound was now a heavy, loping run. It was unnervingly fast. It crashed through the undergrowth, snapping branches as it came, and it was making sounds. It mimicked my panicked gasps for air. It mimicked the sound of my boots pounding the earth. And then it started talking. It used my own voice, but twisted, distorted. Nowhere to run, David, it called out. My own voice full of a glee that was utterly monstrous. The trail ends here. I have no idea how long I ran. Hours, maybe. I just kept going, fueled by pure adrenaline and terror, until the first gray light of dawn started to filter through the canopy. The sounds behind me had faded sometime during the night, but I didn't dare stop. I didn't stop until I burst out of the woods and onto a paved road, collapsing in front of a startled driver who was just starting his morning commute. I never went back for my gear. I never finished the Appalachian Trail. Some nights, when the wind blows just right, I think I can hear a bird singing outside my window, long after dark. And sometimes, in the quiet of my apartment, I hear a faint whisper that sounds an awful lot like my own voice. It's a constant reminder that whatever was in that shelter with me, whatever wrote in that logbook, is still out there, and it knows my name. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the trail. Stay safe out there. Have you ever felt a chill crawl up your spine? That primal feeling of being watched when you're sure you're alone. For David, a wedding photographer, that feeling became a terrifying reality. He was packing up his gear late one night, deep in the woods, after a beautiful, rustic wedding. The string lights still twinkled, casting long, dancing shadows among the pines. The last of the guests had departed hours ago, leaving behind only the echo of laughter and the scent of pine and champagne. David was humming to himself, reviewing the day's shots on a small camera screen. The bride and groom, silhouetted against the sunset. The joyous tears of the bride's mother. The flower girl, fast asleep under a table. He smiled. It had been a perfect day. Then, he got to the last group photo, the one taken just as the evening festivities were wrapping up. He zoomed in, counting the familiar faces of the wedding party. 1, 2, 3. ... 10. ... 11. He paused, his heart skipping a beat. There were only supposed to be 10 people in that photo. He counted again. Definitely 11. The 11th figure stood at the far edge of the group, almost swallowed by the encroaching shadows of the forest. It was tall, unnaturally so, with limbs that seemed just a little too long, a little too thin. Its face was a blur, obscured by the dim light, but David could make out 2 points of light that seemed to reflect the camera flash like an animal's eyes. A strange, cold dread washed over him. Maybe it was a guest he'd forgotten, someone who had slipped in late, but he'd been there all day. He knew every face. He didn't know this one. He tried to shrug it off. A trick of the light, a smudge on the lens. He packed his camera away, telling himself it was just fatigue playing tricks on his mind. As he zipped up his final bag, A sound cut through the silence of the woods. A twig snapping. Loudly. Close by, David froze, every muscle in his body tensing. He slowly turned his head, scanning the dark tree line. The moon was hidden behind a thick blanket of clouds, and the forest was a wall of blackness. "Hello?" He cut it out, his voice sounding small and weak in the vast emptiness. "Is anyone there?" Only the whisper of the wind through the pines answered him. He told himself it was just a deer or a raccoon. Nothing to worry about. He grabbed his bags and started walking briskly toward the dirt path that led back to the parking lot, his footsteps crunching loudly on the gravel. But then he heard it again, another footstep, mirroring his own. Crunch. He stopped. The sound stopped. Crunch. He took another step. Crunch. The echo followed, perfectly in sync. It wasn't an echo. Someone, or something, was following him. Panic began to claw its way up his throat. He started walking faster, his heart pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird. He didn't dare look back. He could feel eyes on him, a heavy, malevolent stare that made the hair on his arms stand on end. The path seemed to stretch on forever. The faint glow of the parking lot lights felt a million miles away. He risked a quick glance over his shoulder. In the deep gloom, he saw a silhouette detach itself from the trees. It was the same figure from the photograph. Tall, gaunt, and moving with a strange, jerky gait that was utterly inhuman. It wasn't walking. It was loping its long arms, swinging almost to its knees. And it was closing the distance. Fast! Davy broke into a full sprint. His lungs burned. His legs screamed in protest, but raw terror propelled him forward. The sounds behind him changed. The crunching footsteps were replaced by a skittering, scratching sound, like claws on stone. And then, a voice, a grotesque mimicry of the bride's, echoed through the trees. "Don't leave so soon," it gurgled, a wet, horrible sound. The party's just getting started. He saw his car, a blessed silhouette against the dim lights. He fumbled for his keys, his hands shaking so violently he could barely fit the key in the lock. The scratching was closer now, right behind him. He could smell it, a foul, coppery scent of damp earth and something rotten. He didn't look. He couldn't. He threw his bags into the passenger seat, jumped in, and slammed the door, locking it just as a long, spindly hand with dirty, broken nails slammed against the window. David screamed, jamming the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. Through the window, he finally saw its face. It was a distorted, nightmarish parody of a human face, with skin stretched tight over a long, narrow skull. The eyes were what haunted him the most. They were not human. They were the eyes of a coyote, wild and intelligent, but filled with a hunger that was ancient and evil. Its mouth stretched into a wide, lipless grin, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth. He slammed the car into reverse, tires squealing on the gravel. The creature shrieked, a sound that was a terrifying mix of a woman's scream and an animal's howl, and leaped back into the darkness of the forest. David didn't stop. He sped out of the parking lot, down the winding mountain road, not once looking in his rearview mirror. He didn't want to see if it was following. He never went back to that forest. When the couple called him for the photos, he mailed them a hard drive, making up an excuse about a family emergency. He couldn't bring himself to look at the images again. He deleted the entire folder, but he couldn't delete the memory. The image of that 11th guest, the one that wasn't on the invitation, is burned into his mind. Sometimes, late at night, when the wind howls, he thinks he hears that horrible, gurgling voice on the wind, and he knows that some things, once seen, can never be unseen, and some creatures, once invited, never truly leave. Thanks for joining me for this chilling tale. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more terrifying encounters. Stay safe out there, and always count your guests. The steam rising from the hot spring was supposed to be relaxing, a gentle curtain separating me from the biting cold of the remote Utah wilderness. I had hiked for 2 days to reach this hidden gem, a place whispered about in online forums, promising solitude and a connection with nature. For the first hour, it was paradise. The mineral-rich water soothed my aching muscles, and the only sounds were the gentle bubbling of the spring and the sigh of the wind through the pines. But as dusk began to settle, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and orange, the steam began to behave strangely. It wasn't just rising anymore. It was coalescing, gathering in a thick, unnatural cloud just above the water's surface, about 20 feet away from me. I blinked, rubbing my eyes. Maybe the heat was getting to me. I took a deep breath of the sulfur-tinged air and tried to ignore it, but the cloud didn't dissipate. Instead, it swirled and thickened, pulling in more vapor until it formed a dense, opaque shape. My heart started to beat a little faster. This wasn't normal. The air grew still, the wind died down completely, and an unnerving silence fell over the clearing. Then, with a horrifying, deliberate slowness, the steam began to change. Tendrils stretched out from the main mass, thinning and elongating. I watched, frozen in the water, as one of those tendrils split at its end, forming what looked disturbingly like fingers. 5 of them. It was a perfect 5-fingered hand, crafted entirely from steam, hovering over the water. It was larger than any human hand, easily the size of a dinner plate, and it hung there, impossibly solid, impossibly real. My breath hitched in my throat. Every rational thought screamed that this was a trick of the light, a hallucination. But it wasn't flickering. It wasn't shifting. It was just. The steam hand clenched slowly, impossibly, into a fist, then unfurled again, palm up, as if an invitation. Or was it a beckoning? A cold dread, far colder than the surrounding air, seeped into my bones. This wasn't a natural phenomenon. This was something else. Something intelligent. I remembered the old Navajo ranger I'd met at the trailhead. He'd eyed my pack and my destination with a somber expression. "Some places out here," he'd said, his voice low. "They're older than the mountains. They have residents. Don't whistle after dark. And don't stay in one place for too long, especially near water. Some things are drawn to the warmth, to the life." At the time, I'd dismissed it as a local folklore, a charming bit of color from my trip. Now, his words echoed in my mind like a death knell. The hand of steam turned, its palm now facing me directly. The fingers twitched, a beckoning gesture that was both subtle and undeniably menacing. It wanted me to come closer. My body was screaming at me to get out, to run, but I was paralyzed by a morbid fascination and pure, unadulterated terror. The water around me suddenly felt like a trap, thick and heavy. That's when I heard the sound. It started as a low click, like 2 stones being tapped together, coming from the dense woods just beyond the spring. Click, click. It was rhythmic, and it was getting closer. My head snapped towards the tree line, my eyes straining to see into the deepening shadows. The clicking stopped, and for a moment, there was only the sound of my own frantic heartbeat. Then, a new sound began, a voice. But it wasn't human. It was a gurgling, wet mimicry of speech, like someone trying to talk with a mouthful of water and gravel. The words were disjointed, nonsensical, but in the middle of the garbled mess, I heard something clearly. My name. It whispered my name on the wind, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I looked back at the steam. The hand was gone. The thick cloud had vanished as if it had never been there, the steam now rising normally in gentle, harmless wisps. The sudden return to normalcy was almost more terrifying than the apparition itself. It felt like a game, a predator, toying with its prey. The clicking started again, much closer this time, just at the edge of the clearing. The gurgling voice whispered my name again, this time with a chilling, possessive tone. I knew then, with absolute certainty, that I was not alone, and that whatever was with me was not friendly. The ranger's warning about things being drawn to warmth, to life, it wasn't folklore. It was a survival guide I had foolishly ignored. Panic finally broke through my paralysis. I scrambled out of the hot spring, not caring about the thermal shock as the frigid air hit my wet skin. I didn't grab my towel, Didn't bother with my clothes. I just snatched my boots, not even putting them on, in my backpack, and I ran. I ran blindly into the forest, away from the spring, away from that voice. Behind me, I heard a sound that will haunt my dreams for the rest of my life. It was a shriek of rage and frustration, a sound that was part animal, part human, and entirely monstrous. It was followed by the heavy, thudding sound of something large crashing through the underbrush, keeping pace with me. I didn't dare look back. I just ran, my bare feet screaming in agony on the sharp rocks and frozen ground. The clicking sound was right behind me, sometimes to my left, sometimes to my right. It was flanking me, hurting me. The gurgling whispers continued, weaving through the trees, telling me to stop, to wait, that the water was so warm. I don't know how long I ran. It felt like an eternity. By some miracle, I stumbled back onto the main trail. The sound of pursuit seemed to fall back slightly, as if it were hesitant to leave its territory. I didn't stop. I ran until the first light of dawn broke through the canopy, and I didn't stop until I saw the ranger station in the distance. I burst through the door, a raving, half-naked madman. The old Navajo ranger was there. He took one look at my wild eyes and my bleeding feet, and simply nodded, a deep sadness in his expression. He wrapped me in a thick wool blanket and sat me down by a crackling fire. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't have to. He just said, "You are lucky. The steam warned you." Sometimes, the land tries to protect those who listen. I learned that day that some stories aren't just stories, and some hot springs are best. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever had a strange encounter in the wilderness, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you enjoy chillin' tales like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you not miss the next one. Stay safe out there.